What is going on, you guys? Today I am back with another great film, so without further ado, let's get into it. The movie begins as an asteroid-looking object crashes into a river with a very loud splash, surprising onlookers. From the water, a man emerges completely naked and walks out, shocking the people watching the spectacle. In a suburban household, Choi is making breakfast in his kitchen, and once he made sure that it was cooked to perfection, he wakes up his sleeping wife with a kiss. He whispers in her ear that he made her delicious soup for their breakfast, but she moans and asks for a couple more minutes of sleep. When she doesn't wake up, he starts to tickle her, making her laugh and giving her the energy that she needs to wake up. In their dining room, Park tries the soup her husband had made and is pleasantly surprised, telling him that it was very delicious. Manjul reminds her of the reunion that she had and tells her that she was going to be late. He tells her that he's going to have to work late and that he'll just have dinner at the office. Suspicious of the answer, Park confronts him about working late frequently, which really upsets Manjil. He tells her that she's more tempting than food, and they fall into bed for another moment of passion. Park goes out that night to meet with her friends at a restaurant for their reunion, and while they were eating, Yang-sun comes downstairs but fails midway. She tries to get herself up, embarrassed by what happened, and the group of men start gossiping about her. Yang-sun joins the ladies and starts talking to Park. She congratulates her on her recent wedding, and she asks Park how she met her husband. Park tells her that she met him after he graduated Stanford and came to Korea for a trip. The jealous Yang-sun tells Park that the men who are successful like that are always cheaters and gets a hiss of disapproval from the group. While the girls continue to gossip, Park receives a message from her husband apologizing for working late. Suhee gets home very late and drunk, and when she heads to the bathroom, she sees her husband was fast asleep and his phone was buzzing loudly. She tries to wake him up but sees a stamp on his wrist, and not thinking much of it, she picks up the buzzing phone and sees a message that asked if his wife was already home and what time they would be leaving on Friday. In the morning, as they sit for breakfast, Park asks Joy what he was going to do on Friday. He then tells her that he'll be going to a funeral, and certain that her husband is hiding something, Park researches private investigators and goes to speak to one called Mystery Research Labs. At the PI office, Park meets Dr. Jang and tells him that she came because she found out that the place offered couples counseling. Jang tells her that 50% of his clients come to him because of cheating husbands, so she doesn't have anything to worry about. Park was too nervous, so she decides to think it over, but Jang convinces her otherwise. A few days later, Jang briefs Park on her husband's strange activities. On April 15, he went to a driving range to play golf, hitting the ball so far that it disappeared from sight. A few hours later, he drank 41 bottles of hard liquor on his own, and later in that day, he went to the Itaewon club, explaining the stamp that she saw on his hand. Jang tells her that her husband left the club with a girl in her 20s and went to a hotel. Her husband left the hotel at 4:07 p.m. to go to the gym and work out for 2 hours without rest with weights that were incredibly heavy. Jang informs her that her husband had met another woman in the gym and had taken her to Bampo River shore, and they had the car bouncing for hours. Jang takes a pause in his story because he feels like what he's about to tell her was too strange, and after taking a breath he continues, and he tells Park that her husband goes to the gas station and drinks $30 worth of gasoline. He then tells her that her husband goes to Yeoksum and rendezvous with a third woman who turns out to be her high school friend. Her husband had traveled across all paths of Seoul, meeting with numerous women. The frightening part of the story had come later though, as Jang tells her that her husband had a number of marriage certificates and that she was actually the fourth one. Distressed by all the information that she received, Park So-hee goes to see her estranged friend Sira, and she tells her everything. Sira makes them dinner, and they talk while sharing hard liquor to ease the pain. The next day, Park goes to meet Jang, who tells her that her husband might not be just a normal human being, but an alien known as Unbreakable. He explains to her that he has had cases like this before, but his clients disappeared a few days later or were found dead. He takes her to another room and continues to explain that existential creatures come to Earth and assimilate into the community. The aliens have evolved by selecting dominant genes, so they're close to being perfect humans. To prove that he was telling the truth, Jang takes her on a stakeout mission so she can see her husband drinking gasoline. At a secret extraterrestrial life-form quarantine center, a group of scientists and officials are gathered together to have a meeting. They discuss the increase in aliens that live in Seoul, and their leader being Choi Man-gil, who's the most dangerous of all of them. These Unbreakables lure women and study their DNA. Their goal is to spread a fatal virus by analyzing human DNA, which could lead to the extinction of the human race. After the stakeout, Park goes home pretty shaken up, and she gets the water from the refrigerator and drinks it, unaware that Choi had poisoned it earlier. She falls over, clutching her hands, and passes away away while Choi pretends to cry his crocodile tears. In the hospital, Park is officially pronounced dead and is surrounded by her friends and also her crying husband. Sierra pushes her way through the crowd and attacks Choi, claiming that he was the one that killed her. While the crowd tries to calm Sierra, Park would come back from the dead after gasping some air and spitting out something bluish, and the doctors check her vitals and deem the cause to be an upset stomach. As usual, Choi claims that he has urgent work and leaves the hospital, and Park takes this opportunity to take her friend Sierra to Mystery Labs to meet Jang. The Unbreakables are rattled that Park survived the poison that was given to her, and Choi goes to his supplier, who gives him a new and stronger batch to inject directly into her neck or thighs. Sierra, Park, and Jang drive to Park's house and set up the bathtub so that when Choi takes a bath he'd be electrocuted, which was the only way to kill an Unbreakable. Once the device was in place, Jang tells Park to lure her husband into taking a bath, and once he was inside, she would give Jang the signal to electrocute him. While they're practicing on how the scenario would unfold, a crazed Yang's son knocks on the door after racing to Park's house. She received a message that her boyfriend was cheating on her, and Jang was shocked to hear that this girlfriend was looking for him with a shotgun and is forced to hide. Yang's son bursts through the bathroom door only to find Sierra pretending to poop. She was very apologetic and tells Park that she'd been told her boyfriend was here. Yang's son admits to lying on their reunion about dating a photographer and tells her that her boyfriend was actually a PI. Feeling distressed, she pulls out a cigarette and uses a fake lighter, resembling an electrocution device, to try to light the smoke, but it ends up frying her boyfriend, who was hiding in the tub, to a crisp. When Park gets a call from her husband telling her that he was on the 5th floor, the three women decide to hide Jang's body in the closet. Choi gets home just in time and Park pushes him to take a bath, and once she makes sure that he's in the water, she presses the button and electrocutes her husband. Apprehensive, the three walk to the bathroom, but are startled by Choi, who comes out untouched. Shocked, Park pretends that her two friends are there to celebrate his birthday, and they all gather to have dinner, cake, and drinks. Yang's son is still shaken up by the accidental murder that she committed and looks like she's about to cry. Choi tries to cheer her up by pouring her some soju, and Sierra and Park then go to the kitchen to execute Plan B. They then pour poison into the wine bottle that they plan to serve Choi. They pour him a glass and he gulps it down like it was nothing, and then Choi suggests a drinking game, but before they could play, they start hearing the sound of a phone call. Choi heads to the bathroom, followed by the very anxious women. Even though they try to stop him from opening it, Choi opens the steamer door to find Jang hanging by his tie. Suddenly his eyes fly open and startles Choi into hitting him over the head. Believing that he murdered the man, Choi anxiously tries to convince the women that it was self-defense, but finds no sympathy from them. The three women convince him that it would be better for him to bury the body because he might still go to jail even if it was self-defense. Choi and the women drive Jang's body out into the woods and have Choi dig a big hole. While Choi was trying to get out of the hole, Park hits him over the head and makes him collapse instantly. The three of them bury the bodies together, aided by the moonlight, but as soon as they finished, Choi breaks through the soil and pokes his head out. Shocked, the women scream and race to the car, trying to get away from the Unbreakable. They start the car and drive as fast as they can, but Choi catches up to them and he lands on the hood of the car, but is propelled forward to a cliff when Sierra suddenly holds the brakes. When they finally make it home, they find 4 of Cho's friends dead after drinking the poisoned wine. Although they were extremely exhausted, they haul the dead bodies into the car and drive into the woods once again to dispose of them. On their way, they encounter a checkpoint, and even though they try to play it off as a couple's night out, they were arrested for drinking and driving. At the police station, Sierra is told that her license has been revoked for drunk driving, and the women start creating a scene when the police announce that they would be waking the men so they can register. Park and her friends relax when they see that the men were actually alive and waving in the car, and another police officer enters the station with a battered Jang, giving the girls another shock. He seems to have forgotten everything that happened, and the police just assume that he was just a bum. Choi crawls out of the cliff that he fell into and finds gasoline to guzzle so he could heal his wounds. He then heads to the police station where he finds his wife and her friends trying to hide from him. At a secret extraterrestrial life-form quarantine center, an Unbreakable was being tortured in order to attempt to find Choi. After a long session of shock therapy, the Unbreakable tells the agent where their leader Choi is, and the agents assemble and head to capture him. Back at the police station, the officers let everybody go with a warning, so they get in the car and drive away. On their way, Choi asks his wife what happened. Realizing that he doesn't remember, she spins a tale about how he fell off a cliff when trying to pee. He then keeps asking questions in good humor, but suddenly, he abruptly stops the car and confronts his wife about trying to kill him. Angry, he drives the car off the side side of the road and into a ditch, and it rolls for a couple of minutes and comes to a halt. The girls crawl out of the overturned car but are pursued by Choi, and they're now convinced that he cannot be killed, so they focus on simply getting away. Up ahead, they see a large warehouse and they head toward it, and inside they try to keep Choi away by closing all the doors, but he was too strong to be held back by mere doors. Finally tired of the chase, Choi pushes large railings of construction materials onto the girls, hurting them really badly. While he tries to end Park's life once and for all by choking her, a sudden light flashes from the outside, announcing that Choi was under arrest. He then heads outside and finds dozens of agents waiting to arrest him, but he manages to take all of the agents down, including an Unbreakable that has switched sides and was working for the humans. But then, Park stabs Cho in the back with a special solution. As the chemical solution enters his body, Choi starts to shake and falls to his knees and dies instantly. Sarah, Park, and Yang's son return to the city and celebrate being alive, and they are joined by Jang, who is now completely better. And that is how today's movie comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave me a comment, and most of all, subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much, and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye!